Welcome to Thar's Garage. In this video, I'll be working on the Yokomo RD 1.0, the Rookie Drift kit. Step 2, steering rod Bellcrank assembly. So let's get started. All right, so we're going to need a few things. We're going to need our chassis assembly from step 1. We're going to need bag 2, which has the steering components that we need for the step. We're also going to need this bag, the steering rods that are already pre-built for us in here in bag 2. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And we're going to need, well, I'm going to need my supplementary manual because I have step 2, the steering rod Bellcrank assembly in the supplementary manual. So not necessary that your kit has it as well, but I'm going to be following this versus what's in the actual manual itself. The things that I did notice that were different from the supplementary manual and the initial manual is the steering rod length is different. There's 1.5 millimeter spacers below the ball studs. The location on the center link where the ball studs go in is different. I believe it was this hole here in the actual manual, and the supplementary manual it's this hole. Over here we're also using a 1.5 millimeter spacer. I think everything else is roughly the same. So let's go ahead and get these bags opened and get to assembling this. So these are the 1.5 millimeter spacers that we're going to need. We have our bearings, ball studs, and some other hardware. So according to the manual, the supplementary manual, the steering rod is supposed to be 52.3 millimeters from end to end. So looks like we're pretty much where we need to be. 52.3. I'm not terribly concerned about the total length of those just yet. And the servo rod is supposed to be 34.6. So close enough. I'm not too concerned about them not being perfect just yet, because once they're on the car, they're easier to adjust, and after everything's built and I do my initial setup on the car, I'm going to adjust them anyway to make sure that the toe, camber, and things like that are going to be correct. All right, so looks like we're going to need the center link. So let's go ahead and get this off the parts tree. Nice and smooth. So check the orientation. So it's going to sit flat. These are raised up. So we're going to need 2 over 1.5 spacers, and we're going to need 2 of the ball studs. And then we're going to install the ball stud in this hole and this hole. We're going to set this aside for now, and we're going to get our, looks like, Bellcrank and servo rod assembly put together. So we need this piece and this piece off the parts tree, but we might as well just take everything off right now. And the sharp edges. So we need this piece here in this orientation. All right, so it's completely flat from here to here, and then it starts raising up. Then we have our two holes where it has bosses where it's raised up. So we're going to need our last ball stud that was in the bag, along with the 1.5 millimeter spacer, and we're going to install this in this hole here. All right, and then we can install the servo rod onto here, and looks like if this is installed on the car, this is the left side, this is the right side of the car. And then looking at the servo rod, I'm making sure I can see which thread is right hand threaded and which is left hand threaded, because I want to make sure that all the left hand threads are on the left side of the car. And so it looks like the notch that is here indicates right hand thread. So this is the left hand thread over here. So I want that portion to be installed onto this ball stud. There we go. No binding or anything. Actually feels really great. Barely any slop. All right. Next we can grab our right side bell crank. This was the left hand side bell crank. Make sure everything's smooth on here before we continue. And so we have this orientation here. This side is completely flat. It looks like this will be facing up. So what we're going to do now is take our center link. Oh, we forgot to install the turnbuckles, the steering turnbuckles on the center link, so we can go ahead and do that. Make sure you put the notches on the right side of the car. So we have everything set up now. We're going to install the center link pin, which are these pieces here. So we're going to install them through the center link and thread them in to the bell crank holes here and here. All right, so basically tighten them down until you feel some friction or that it's like a little too tight, and then back it off just a little bit until you feel the bell crank is able to move under its own weight, just like so. All right, so you can set this aside and we can prep the chassis with the bell crank base. So the bell crank base is going to install in this position with the flat facing up. The bottom side just has like two bosses and this section is not flat in between. So this will be facing down, this will be facing up. And it's going to install in these two holes here and here. And these will be on top, and we need two M3x15 flathead screws from our screw bag, which should be in bag 1. 2 of those. And since these will be going into what seems to be aluminum, I'm actually going to install them with some blue Loctite. So let's see. Go ahead and insert these screws. All right, so I'm just going to put a small dab of Loctite on the end of these screws, just because I don't want them to back out. So I'm going to hold back up with a 5.5 driver and then tighten with the 2mm. And I'm not going to tighten down too hard, just kind of snug it up like if it was going into plastic, and call that good. And that Loctite should prevent it from backing out. Next, we can install 2 4x8 bearings on the Bellcrank posts. I'm going to grab 2 M3x5 button head screws, which should be in bag 5 of the screw bags. So this is the front of the chassis. We're going to install the Bellcranks. Looks like this position right here. So we'll install the other 4x8 bearings on top, and then those will be held down by the M3x5 button head screws, and I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these screws as well, since they are going into aluminum. All right, just tighten it and then make sure everything moves nice and free. It can move under its own weight, which it can. So that's exactly what we want. All right, so that's it for step 2, the string rod and Bellcrank assembly. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you did. Let me know down in the comments if you had any issues with this step, if you had this supplementary manual and had some of these changes, or if you didn't. Stay tuned for the next video, which is going to be for step 3, the gear diff assembly. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.